Hello, Clarice.
Hello, Clarice. I don't even know how that got started. We'll get into that in a second.
Yeah, I don't remember either.
Our first podcast ever. This is our first show.
Finally, yes.
I'm
It
so
only took about
excited.
6 months of setup and got to clear all the legal stuff, but we're here.
Yeah, got it together. We got our lives together.
Yeah. Well, no, not necessarily that, but
Oh, well,
we got
okay.
this podcast together.
Right, exactly. And I'm Jen Fig, Jennifer, reporting from Las Vegas. And you are?
Yes, I'm Spencer. I'm Spencer Lewis, reporting from Austin, Texas.
Yeehaw!
Yep. So how goes it? How goes it for you?
You know, really good. It just being a mom and running around doing errands, trying to get connected with you here so we can get this first show off and running. So I'm glad to finally be able to do this and actually connect.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I think that more than anything else is we get to connect, we get to talk about old times, talk about where we are now, and maybe talk about what's on our mind and talk about, is it Friday yet type of stuff.
Is it Friday yet? Gosh, I know.
Not even close though.
I know. And actually, on Friday, my daughter's getting married. So
What?
I know, I'm super excited.
Wow.
So she's getting married, and she wanted to get married on Friday the 13th. So we were like, okay, if that's what you want to do.
Dude, that's so awesome.
Yeah, she's very excited. Very excited. We're all excited. It's been a year in planning, and it's gonna be great. It's gonna be fun.
Lord.
So my September is booked. Like I don't know about you, but like I look at my calendar between the kids, appointments, my work, school. I have to go to schools for my work. I am just the wedding. I feel like it's going to be October before I know it, which is fine with me because I love October.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's been the going theme for years now. When you have kids, things seem to get packed quite quickly, and it always seems to be as soon as October comes around, you're done for the rest of the year. Things always seem to happen in October, and then you've got the Halloween, and then you've got the Thanksgiving, you've got the Christmas. So yeah, it's going to be a roller coaster from here on out.
So, what were we going to talk about? We were going to talk about first how we met.
Yeah, I think that whole how we met, how we got our careers going in the broadcasting industry, and that seems like it was a whole lifetime ago. And move on to what we've done since then and what we're doing now, and we'll take it from there.
I mean, my daughter is 26, the one that's getting married.
Man.
So, and her dad I met at radio school with you, Scott Fix. So, rest in peace. But so it's been 26 years, man.
Well, I think it's been longer than that.
Over 26 years. Over than 26 years. Yeah, because that first year we were together, and then I had her the next year. So, yeah, 27 years. So, wow, that's crazy.
Well, let me ask you. Okay, I know I'm not even sure. Well, maybe we talked about it way back then, but where were you at in your life when you decided I want to try my hand at broadcasting? Because I know you lived in the Inland Empire, and the broadcasting school was in Orange County. How did you find it? What made you think you were going to do it, and what drove you to it?
Well, and funny enough, I actually didn't live in Rancho Cucamonga yet. I actually lived with my parents in Palmdale, and then I was going to community college, working like 3 jobs. I think I was working at Wells Fargo, Pacific Sunwear, and Blockbuster Video. I think I had 3 jobs.
How old were you
at
then?
that time? I was 20, and I just was like. I was like, I need to do something. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had talked about being an actress, Southern California, talked about being a lawyer, going to school, all these things. one day, I used to love going to the library, the public library back in the day. Does anybody go to the public library anymore? I loved going to the library, but I went, my mom dropped me off one day, and you could check out like cassette tapes. And they had this whole audio thing, and it was Tony Robbins, the motivational speaker. And I was like, oh, I want to see this. I want to listen to it. So I got the cassettes and put them in my little stereo, and he said a lot of things that just made sense. And at 20 years old, I was like blown away, and I was like, yes, yes. And he said, right now, at the end of this tape, I want you to do 3 things that you've been putting off. Write them down and do them. Stop procrastinating, just do it. One of them was like making up with one of my friends, which I did. One of them, I don't remember. But the third one was I kept seeing commercials for the Academy of Radio Broadcasting. It was on, out in California, it was KCOP where I saw it on, in Palmdale, it was Channel 13. So I just was like always seeing these commercials. And I was like, that would be so fun. I want to be on radio. Like I could do that. And I told my dad, I'm going to make an appointment for this. Will you go with me? And he was like, yes. So I made the appointment. We went. I signed up. I did a student loan in my name. He did a parent loan, covered the costs. And that was like in April. And I started in May. And it was the best thing I ever did. I mean, you look at it, after being in radio, I think, oh, what a scam. Like I always tell everybody, don't go to radio school. Just go work at a radio station and intern and work your way up. You'll save yourself $25,000 and you'll learn the whole industry, and you'll know people, and if you've got the drive, you will learn all the departments and you'll work your way up much quick. Well, I can't say much quicker than radio school, but it'll definitely save you money. But I did that, and I quit one of my jobs, transferred from Wells Fargo Bank. Well, I quit 2 of my jobs. Transferred from Wells Fargo Bank.
Wait. You quit 2 of your jobs? How many jobs did you have?
I had 3.
Good Lord.
Well, no. Okay, I take it back. Actually, I got fired from Blockbuster Video. So I was fired from
Wait. How could you get fired from Blockbuster Video? What in the hell did you do? Were you letting your friends take some movies or something?
No, I did steal a lot of movies from there, though.
So how did you get fired?
Old movies.
So how did you get fired?
I was late. A lot. Like a lot. And the manager was a really good friend of mine. He was an Irishman. And I loved his accent. He was so funny, and we always messed with him, my coworkers and I. My best friend actually worked there with me. And one day, his brother-in-law owned that Blockbuster, and his brother-in-law was there. So he was the GM, and I came in late, clocked in, got to work. Now, I had a great work ethic other than being late. I work my ass off. I do everything. I'm friendly with customers. You got time to lean, you got time to clean. I was that person, right? I would get things done. But he was there, and he was never there. He lived in Vegas, oddly enough. But he had asked Mark, the manager, hey, how often is she late? I want to see her file. And he was like, okay. And so he looked at my file, and I was late all the time. And they let me go. That day, they fired me. And I was like, okay, no big deal. Like, it's okay. And then I had 2 other jobs. That was good. And I worked at City of Palmdale for Parks and Recreation, and I loved doing that job. That was a lot of fun. Quit there. And Wells Fargo, I was actually a teller, and I transferred to customer service, like the 800 number you call and yell at people about, your checking account being overdrawn. And that was in Santa Ana. So I figured I'm going to go to school in Huntington and work down there. And then that's when I moved to Rancho Cucamonga because my cousins live there. Okay. And it was just easier for me than driving from Palmdale. And I did that just for a while. And then I met Scott. And within 2 months, I was moving in with him. And a month later, I was pregnant. So,
Damn.
We did things quick. But it was a blast. It was a blast. So that was my kind of transition there. and how I got to radio school. How about you?
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think that's one of the best times of my life for sure. I've always had a passion with radio, and I didn't even realize it, to be honest. I was probably in fifth or sixth grade, and I would started to get into music and started listening to the radio stations. And then a buddy of mine told me to switch the channel, and I found K Rock, and it was this new modern type of music. And this is, like, mind you, in the early '80s. And then I would start to, because I didn't have any money. Parents wouldn't want to spend extra money on buying me cassette tapes or albums or whatnot back then. I was too young. So we can even go back further and talk about when I'd found my dad's Creedence Clearwater albums and the Beach Boys and the Beatles and so on and so on. So that got me started. But trying to figure out my own music, I decided, you know what, I'm just going to get my little cassette recorder. And it was literally the cassette recorder next to a stereo and record music that way. And so then I started doing that. And then I had a buddy that spent the night one night, and we were up way late. And he was really into sports and started pretending like he was a sports commentator. And then all of a sudden I started like messing with the pause button and doing weird things, and I had no clue, but I was doing some editing type of situations. And then it just kept morphing and morphing into doing little snippets, or I would hear something. This could be another podcast in itself. Things within songs that people didn't catch, and I would catch them. And I would pause it, I don't remember what exactly it was, but there was like a cuss word, and it was on the radio, and no one caught it, but I would catch it, and I would just without splicing tape, because I had no idea what that was, I would just get to that little point, and I would, hit the record button, and I'd have these little edit clips. And then, out of high school, I always seemed to fall back on automotive. I was very handy. I would tear stuff apart, put them back together. And my first job was at a gas station. And I had a couple of the mechanics that would teach me how to, pull, do brakes and whatnot. So automotive was always my fallback, but it wasn't ever really a passion. And again, going back to K Rock, I lived in our Pasadena, Arcadia area, and I found out where the radio station was. And I always talked my friends into going out, to the radio station on Los Robles, the very first location of K Rock, and we'd hang out in the back door. And every once in a while, Richard Blade or someone would open the door and give us some stickers and whatnot. And like you said, I had no clue, not one clue, that all I really needed to do was to say, hey, let me sweep your floors. Let me, run coffee. Let me go get you guys donuts or lunch. And that would have been my in. I mean, geez, I lived right off of Colorado Boulevard. I could have rode a bike there, but I had no clue. I had no idea. Out of high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Just transitioned into City College, still not knowing. Had I really, thought, if you're going to go to college, maybe go into broadcast journalism, something like that. And then I could have, interned at K Rock, and God, who knows where I would have been now. But fast forward to my late 20s and started hearing the commercials about the academy in Huntington Beach. And I actually wrote down the phone number, and it sat on top of my toolbox. I was a mechanic at the time for a year. And then some internal issues happened in my life, and I kind of was forced to do some things, and it kind of forced me to move outside my comfort zone. So one of those things was, all right, you've had this phone number sitting on your toolbox for over a year, call it. And ended up calling it, went there, and of course they said, oh, you've got the voice. I've never heard it before. and we
You
can,
got the face for
yes,
radio.
oh my, yeah, exactly, for sure. So, anyways, next thing you know, I just jumped in feet first and just boom, and that was the best thing.
Yeah.
I met so many good friends, and had such a
Yep.
great time. I mean, I think we were midway through, and Michael Clark Duncan joined in, and Big
Yep.
Mike. That was an experience with him as well. But yeah, there were so many things
Yep.
that I'd learned at that broadcasting school, just not even radio related, just life and whatnot. So that was some really really fun times.
It was so funny too because he had just finished. Didn't he just finish Armageddon when he was in that school? And he was like, I know. And us, we're like, Armageddon. What is that? Like, we don't even
Right.
think.
Yeah,
about
because it hadn't even been released
now,
yet. Yeah.
Yeah, we're like, oh my gosh, Green Mile and everything he did. Rest in peace to him too.
Yeah.
But he was so lovely. I loved him. He was so funny. Big Mike, yeah.
The funniest thing I remember about that is once a week we would have to do. I don't even remember what it was called. It was like that 3 hour, lecture room to where they would talk.
Yes.
People would come in. They would give us exercises and little things to do. Well, it was probably the first or second week that Mike was there, and they gave us a little exercise. And it was, okay, you guys are going to pair up, pick a partner, and you're going to create something, and you have to kind of be out of your comfort zone. And everybody was picking teams and whatnot. And I don't know what it made me, but I saw Mike, and he didn't know anyone at the time. And I walked up to him and said, "Hey, let's get together." I was like 5-0, and here's Mike, 7 foot, 400 pounds. So right then and
you
there.
had beautiful long
Oh,
hair.
that's right. I forgot about that. Yeah. And so what our skit was, I was going to be a police officer pulling him over, and I was going to be a big rough and tumble cop, and he was going to be a little old lady. And the funny thing is if you can remember Mike's voice, it was so deep.
Yes.
Absolutely deep. And when we were doing the skit in front of the class, I was like being this big old cop and whatnot. And then as soon as he started to try and talk about being a little old lady, it wasn't working. But we had the whole
hilarious.
the whole class was rolling.
That's so good. That's
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
there's a lot of good memories. Even Scott, I'll speak for Scott. When he, how he got into the radio school, his brother made an appointment for him. And
Oh, really?
listen to, he passed away too recent last year, but he made the appointment because Scott had kept talking about it, and they would talk about it, and they would always say, "Scott, you have such a great radio voice. You should," and then they would always joke that, "You got the face for radio, haha." And his family's just like that, outgoing like he was. And his brother finally just made the appointment for him, was like, "Hey, let's go. We're going to go do this." And was like, "Oh, well, okay." And then he went and he signed up. And I think actually his brother had thought about doing it too. Originally, I think that was him. He was going to do it. But more so, Scott ended up being more interested in it. And then the rest is history. I got, one marriage, a divorce, and 2 kids later with him. But a lot of memories, a lot of good memories.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that. Let's move forward past the broadcasting school. Where did you go next? I mean, we graduate, and then what did you do? Where'd you go?
I was adamant that I did not want to go back to regular work. I was like, I'm not going to do regular work. I did this school. I'm ready to go. So, they'd always did we have leads for you. They would always give it to you. Go print them up. Like every Thursday they had leads or something, and you'd go look and see if there was work. Because, this was before the internet. Well, the internet had just started, but I didn't have a computer. And because that was 1998, 97. It was 1997 because we graduated November of 97. And were we in the same graduating class, or did you start?
Yep.
I know they had rotating graduation classes or whatever.
We were real close. I think we were real close.
Yeah. And I just immediately started looking for, because I was doing this customer service job. I hated it. I was pregnant with Rebecca, and I just was like, oh, I just hate this. I don't want to go to work. The thought of leaving a new baby home once I gave birth just made me burst into tears. So by about March or April, and she was born in May. I was like, I really seriously need to start looking for a job. And then I got a call from, I forget her name. I think it starts with a C. It was right there, and I just was going to say her name, at the broadcasting school. And she was like, hey, I have this job lead. It's in Mammoth. And I didn't have a clue where Mammoth was. I was like, is that by Big Bear? Because she said it's a resort, ski resort. And I was like, man, I'm a terrible Southern Californian. I don't even know where Mammoth is. And for those of you who don't know where Mammoth is, the Eastern Sierras in Central California, beautiful, beautiful town. I saw that they were hiring and they were looking for a news person. And I was like, oh, okay. So I went up there, interviewed. They were like, oh, we can give you the job. And mind you, like, it was terrible money. I was making really good money at the time. I mean, at the time, I think I was like at 30 grand a year, and I was part-time technically with Wells Fargo. And that was 1998. And they had great perks, but I just didn't want to do that job anymore. And so they were paying me in Mammoth, like, I don't know, whatever minimum wage was, maybe a little above that. It was like maybe $6 an hour. How we survived, I mean, well, I know how we survived. We had an apartment. They threw in an apartment, but we still had to pay rent for it. Just not as much as you would have paid if you just moved there, because it is a resort town. But and so I got on the air there, and then of course, Scott was very likable, and very, just when you talk to him, he just had that thing about him that people automatically liked. And then of course he had the radio voice. So when we moved up there and I introduced him, and he went to the radio school too, and and then it became, let's have you do voice tracks, to record for we're gonna kill it for people and tell them that the secret, we record voice tracks for radio shows. You're not hearing a live DJ all the time. And so he started doing that for them. They hired him, and then next thing you know, people are leaving, because it was kind of like your first stepping stone into radio kind of a station. You don't really plan to be there very many years. And they leave, so then I'm like, what do they do? I wanted to learn what they do. And it was like the music directing, where they would put all the music in, traffic, which is scheduling the commercials and dealing with contracts from the advertisers. And I was like, I want to learn that. So I on purpose wanted to learn everything, because I hated doing news, because news never happened in Mammoth. It was like a bear is in the dumpster. Nobody, there was nothing happened there. It was a beautiful little quiet town. And so I was able to get out of the news and do all these other things. And then Scott moved to mornings. So he was there 5 to 10 and doing all that in the morning. And it just worked out great, because we lived down the hall. It was in the same building. So when it would snow 10 feet, people digging their cars out to go to work and putting chains, and here we are in our pajamas strolling on down the hallway and getting on the radio and doing our thing. So that was great experience, and we ended up there for 4 years.
Yeah,
so that was really good
for some 20-something-year-old kids. I mean, that would be that's it right there.
Having the run of a radio station. I mean, listen, you sent me those recordings of us on the radio when you came to visit, and I should have been fired on the spot. Any other radio station, definitely, if it was owned by like a Clear Channel or iHeartRadio, whatever, all those Beasley Media.
That barely existed back then.
Yeah, they would have been there within 20 minutes, and we would have been escorted out. But
well, see, now I remember, because I went up for an interview, and all the owners, you guys told me, they were gone. The owners were out of the state, and I don't know who it was related to. Nicole Brown, I guess one of those. Nicole Brown's sister.
Oh, you remember that? Oh,
yes.
Because the manager, her brother was killed. And so it was like a domestic violence thing or a violence thing or whatever it was.
Yeah, and she came up to interview, about domestic violence.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, they were all out of town, and
yeah.
So we figured we had the run of the place. And
we really did.
We sure did give it a run. You'll have to throw in an edit of at least a couple of little snippets in the podcast.
Little snippets there, here and there. Oh, yeah. Gosh. I'll have to make sure they're not too terribly bad.
Nah. You can find you can at least find 30 seconds of good stuff within that.
Oh, I don't know about 30
days,
seconds.
2 days worth
maybe
of
20, 15. It's pretty bad. You, my friend, you were trying to keep it professional. Like I was just drunk out of my mind, thinking that nobody would tell.
Well, I mean, literally, it was 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. So not a lot of people,
we spent.
except for that one guy. I don't remember his name. He was listening. There's one guy that called in.
Yeah, Eric or something.
Eric, yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Sounds about right.
Yeah,
But,
yeah. Well, and it was the was it wintertime? It wasn't wintertime because we went to the lake, the lake that could have killed us if we fell down. Because of the, what do you call it? The carbon monoxide.
yeah.
Where all the trees were dead.
Yeah.
You don't take your dogs or little kids there because they could die.
Yeah, all those thermal vents and whatnot.
Yeah,
But,
yeah. So I remember we went there and it wasn't snowing.
Yeah, I think it was towards the end of the ski season because I think Mammoth had shut down their lifts like a week before I came up. So whatever date that is. So
Yeah.
early spring maybe. Who knows?
So I got on the air there, and then of course, Scott was very likable and very, just when you talk to him, he just had that thing about him that people automatically liked. And then of course he had the radio voice. So when we moved up there and I introduced him, and well, he went to the radio school too, and da da da. And then it became, well, let's have you do voice tracks, to record for we're going to kill it for people and tell them that the secret, we record voice tracks for radio shows. You're not hearing a live DJ all the time. And so he started doing that for them. They hired him, and then next thing you know, people are leaving, because it was kind of like your first stepping stone into radio kind of a station. You don't really plan to be there very many years. And they leave, so then I'm like, what do they do? I wanted to learn what they do. And it was like the music directing, where they would put all the music in, traffic, which is scheduling the commercials and dealing with contracts from the advertisers. And I was like, I want to learn that. So I on purpose wanted to learn everything because I hated doing news, because news never happened in Mammoth. It was like a bear is in the dumpster. Nobody, there was nothing happened there. It was a beautiful little quiet town. And so I was able to get out of the news and do all these other things. And then Scott moved to mornings. So he was there 5 to 10 and doing all that in the morning. And it just worked out great because we lived down the hall. It was in the same building. So when it would snow 10 feet, people digging their cars out to go to work and putting chains. And here we are in our pajamas strolling on down the hallway and getting on the radio and doing our thing. So that was great experience. And we ended up there for 4 years.
Yeah.
So that was really good.
For some 20-something-year-old kids, I mean, that would be that's it right there.
Having the run of a radio station. I mean, listen, you sent me those recordings of us on the radio when you came to visit, and I should have been fired on the spot. Any other radio station, definitely, if it was owned by like a Clear Channel or iHeartRadio, whatever, all those Beasley Media.
That barely existed back then.
Yeah, they would have been there within 20 minutes, and we would have been escorted out.
Well, see, now I remember, because I went up for an interview, and all the owners, you guys told me, they were gone. The owners were out of the States, so we figured we had the run of the place. And
we really did.
We sure did give it a run. You'll have to throw in an edit of at least a couple of little snippets in the podcast.
Snippets there, here and there. Oh, yeah. Gosh, I'll have to make sure they're not too terribly bad.
Nah. You can find you can at least find 30 seconds of good stuff within that.
I don't know about 30 seconds.
2 days worth
maybe
of
20, 15. It's pretty bad. You, my friend, you were trying to keep it professional. Like I was just drunk out of my mind, thinking that nobody would tell.
Well, I mean, it literally it was 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. So not a lot of people.
We spent.
Except for that one guy. I don't remember his name. He was listening. There's one guy that called in.
Yeah, Eric or something.
Eric, yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, Well, and it was the was it wintertime? It wasn't wintertime because we went to the lake, the lake that could have killed us if we fell down. The because of the, what do you call it? The carbon monoxide,
Yeah.
where all the trees were dead.
Yeah.
You don't take your dogs or little kids there because they could
Yeah,
die.
all those thermal vents and whatnot.
Yeah,
But
yeah. So I
yeah,
remember we went there and it wasn't snowing.
yeah, I think it was towards the end of the ski season because I think Mammoth had shut down their lifts like a week before I came up. So whatever date that is. So
Yeah,
early spring maybe. Who knows?
yeah. Well, what did you do after radio school? You did an interview with us, and then you ended up not coming up there.
Well, I don't know if it was before or after I got the offer for Mammoth, but I did do a brief stint up in the Antelope Valley at the Oasis 105.5.
Yes.
It was a brand new radio station that played the hits from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And I did the overnight drive for about six to 8 months. But the commute, it was because I was living in Orange County at the time, and I was driving
it's far.
2.5 hours up to the Antelope Valley. But it was fun. I got to be on the air.
Yeah.
There again, it was the overnight drive, so not a lot of people were around, and you tend to get bored as a young 30-year-old kid playing, Mariah Carey and Lionel Richie and all
Yacht
those
rock.
things. Yeah. And back then it was, it wasn't on a computer. They gave you a list of the stuff that they want you to play, and you had to pull from a rack of CDs. And then you had this rack of about 4 or 5 different CD players, and you'd load them up and you'd pre-cue them for a specific song. And when one song would end, you'd fire the other one off. After doing that for 3, 4, 5 months solid, you can only listen to so much Elton John and whatnot at 3 o'clock in the morning. I started to notice there was some, you've got Elton John here, but then you also have Def Leppard, 4 or 5 songs later. So I would maybe accidentally cue that off, and I think I did that one too many times, and I did get I got a memo saying, knock it off. But
That's so crazy, especially for an overnight.
yeah. Well,
I mean,
what
like,
do you do?
the whole politics of radio is, because people ask me now, why don't you go back into radio? I said, it's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot. Companies are weird, and especially if they're owned by like the big companies.
Well, they all are now.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah. You hardly have any mom and pop ones anymore. In radio school, do you remember they would have us pull carts? Like it wasn't CDs or whatever. They would let us do albums, but then they would be like, you have to pull from these carts.
Yep.
And you have to do this, this, and this. Like, they were just so, like... And they would be like, and we're going to be listening. So, we'd be in our little studios.
Yeah. A cart
DJ.
is almost like a little... If you can remember what an 8-track looks like, it was just this big old huge thing that you just shoved into a machine, and you couldn't really rewind or fast forward. You just had, I don't know what... It had different levels. Yeah. But that's where we did our commercials off of, and I guess there were some songs back then from the playlist. So things changed.
So unrealistic of going into radio school. I mean, it was 1998, 97. Like, that was so, like, unrealistic. I went every radio, even the old, going to Mammoth, like that radio station, they didn't have carts. They were on computer, and all the songs were on computer. And then you could play off albums as well. I think you could play off CDs too, I'm pretty sure. Can't remember. But...
Yeah, no, I brought my whole CD case up with me. You're talking about Mammoth? Yeah, I did. And we plugged those things in. I don't know. Yeah, there again, going back, if we had just gone to a radio station before even broadcasting, and just swept the floors and been the errand boy,
Yeah.
depending on what radio station, especially not even knowing that, being so close to Southern California, that we could have gone to KLOS, we could have gone to, K Rock, some of these big,
Hair.
yeah, absolutely. Even
They
in
had
the
so many.
Inland Empire, I think it was Cola or something like that.
Cola. You had KGGI
Yep,
99.1.
yep.
I love that station.
A counselor for a while, but he was a nut job.
Oh, I
Uh,
think I know who you're talking about.
talk.
I really enjoyed my time in radio. I mean, I did it for about, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 years on and off, going through different cities and stuff. And then when I worked in Nashville, that was the last time I was in radio. A company called Cromwell, and actually I think they're a different company now. I loved working there. And let's talk about the perks. Like, they had a suite at Bridgestone Arena. I saw so many concerts. First of all, being in a suite, it's not great seats because it's a suite, so you're kind of far, but it's still, but you have your own bathroom. There's nobody, no strangers you're sitting next to. Like, it's the best. Like, there's just so many concerts we saw there. It was just so great.
With your credentials, were you ever able to like get backstage or anything like that to kind of schmooze with the talent?
No, I mean, I never tried to do that with anything. When we were at our radio station, we did have like a den, the Buzz Den, and we would have people come in and perform in this little den. It looked like a basement, and it was really great because it just felt homey, and so that was really nice because you're literally like, oh, there's Paramore. They were there. They performed in the den.
What's her name? Haley.
Haley, yes, thank you. So Haley was right there, walking down the hall, right? It was like, wow, cool, Everclear, oh my God, I loved Everclear when I was 18, 19, 20 years old. And then years later to see Everclear performing in the den, and I'm like, wow, this is amazing. So that's about as close as I got there. And my second husband at the time, he knew a lot of celebrities. So I met a lot of celebrities through him, but not necessarily through the radio, my radio jobs. Well, as far as backstage concerts, I didn't meet a lot of people, but people that came into the station, I got to meet. Like, especially because we had a sports station, and then they would always have comedians on sports stations. So, like Christopher Titus, Rob Schneider. And so I got to meet a few people that way as well. And they would come on the shows and stuff, but it was still a blast. It was such a blast, but I couldn't imagine going back to that life. I don't know. It was just a different time. I wasn't
Yeah.
a single mom either, so it's different when you've got somebody else that supports you, and you're able to be gone those long hours or working in
Sure.
radio.
Yeah. No. Absolutely. I agree. I mean, when I got out of radio, I always still wanted to be a part of some sort of entertainment, some sort of music, and it was basically just because music was my passion. It got me through good times, bad times, whatnot. So I think accidentally I kind of rolled into DJing. I was still working at the radio station, and a good friend of mine, he was a kid that I'd known since he was just a little kid. It was a friend of a friend, and he'd always call me Uncle Spencer and whatnot. Well, anyways, he was getting married, and he knew that I was working at the radio station. He's like, "Hey, I want you to DJ my wedding." And I'm like, well, it's a little different, DJing a wedding versus playing at a radio station. He's like, no, I want you to do it. It's going to be small. No one's going to be there. No worries. Just play some music. And I'm like, okay, I'll do it. And the next thing you know, no, it was this huge, elaborate wedding. I not only I was under the impression that I was just going to be the reception. You just play music, and people will dance. But no, I was doing the procession and everything, and going down the aisle music, and it was absolutely, I was not prepared at all. I mean, yes, I had the music for when they were coming down the aisle, but I had no clue. I was absolutely just over my head. And thankfully, the photographer that they had hired, obviously, he was a professional. And he kind of took me under his wing. He's like, I got you. You know, this is what's going to happen. After this, it's going to be the father-daughter dance. Then it's going to be this. And I had no clue. I think I'd been to one wedding in my life before that. So I had no idea. I thought I was just going to grab a stack of CDs and just play. But with the help of that photographer, I got through it, and people, started to reach out to me and say, hey, we've got this thing coming up and we've got that coming up. So the next thing you know, I'm working at the radio station, but I'm also DJing weddings or events or parties. And then I remember it was a good friend of mine. I think somebody's it was an iconic birthday, whether it was a 50-year-old, the dad's turning this or whatever. But the cool thing about it is it was going to be on this little harbor cruise boat that was going to be cruising through Newport, the Newport Harbor. And so they begged me to do it, and it was on this boat, and I brought my equipment. And I remember it was a double-decker harbor, cruise. It wasn't a ship, but they had their own DJ set up. They had all the equipment there and whatnot. The head of the boat was like, no, you can just leave your equipment, bring your music and whatever. You can use my microphones, my equipment. And we had a blast. And after the event, he had, because, I don't know, the DJ for any party, you're always the first one to show up and you're always the last one to leave. You've got to set up and you got to break down. So as I'm breaking down all my stuff, the guy had said, hey, would you like to maybe do another one? I've got some stuff coming up. And not knowing what he was wanting was an actual almost every weekend type of a DJ. But it was badass. There was, office parties, there were engagement parties or whatnot on this hour and a half long cruise through Newport Beach Harbor. And the great part about it was I knew what time I had to be there, and I knew what time it was going to end, because if you've ever done any type of party, they say it's going to go from 7 till midnight or whatever. But, the more alcohol people are drinking, the longer it goes. So I knew that I was going to be done at this specific time. And the best parties were engagement parties, because obviously everyone's, cutting loose after all the stress of getting prepared for a wedding. And it always seemed to be the parents of the bride or groom that would come and slip me a $20 bill and say, hey, play this song. And I remember one time this guy, he came up 3 times to me. He's like, hey, you're playing the best music. You're making my little girl's, night. You're awesome. He handed me a $20 bill 3 times. And I think he was
Nice.
just so drunk that he didn't realize that he had tipped me before. So I did
Nice.
that. I did that for quite a long time. And that was probably one of the funnest things that I've done, as far as, music goes and whatnot and DJing. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I think I recall a wedding that you were supposed to DJ that you went MIA. We don't have to talk about why, but I just remember being worried sick. We're talking about my wedding to Scott. We saw you the night before. We all partied the night before.
There's the first problem.
He disappeared.
There's the first problem. The party night was the night before the wedding.
Right.
Typically you either do no, it was like the bachelor/bachelorette. You guys didn't do a separate. I think it was a combined.
No, we all just were together.
Yeah, it's all together. So here I am driving up to Palmdale, and yeah, we partied it up. We hooped and hollered, and next thing you know, I wound up behind bars.
And I have no clue. Here I am on my wedding day. Where's Spencer? What happened to Spencer? Spencer's not here. What is happening? There's something going on. There's something wrong. You were just gone.
Yeah.
And all I wanted to make sure was that you were alive. Like, I don't think we heard from you until we went to Laughlin for our honeymoon, and I remember I think you had called us and let us know, and kind of told us what happened.
Well,
And
I didn't want to
wish you
call.
would've
I didn't want to call you guys on your wedding day. You guys, I was already gone, and I
No,
would have missed it.
I just assume you're dead. You know, so way to go, Spence. Like,
Yep.
at least
Yep.
if I would have known you were okay. Think about that for the future. Just, I know it's your wedding day. I'm really sorry, but I'm okay. We'll talk after.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
all right. And we figured it out. Luckily, we had all the music already pre-recorded, set up. I had like a little mini disc player. I'm such a freak. And so I just had every dance song that I wanted. I had it all set up. Even the father-daughter dance, our dance that he and I did, like we had everything all set up. It was just a matter of a transition, and it worked out.
Yeah. I was devastated. Oh my God, I forgot about that.
It's just funny to me because as you're talking about these weddings, I just am like,
Yeah, and I completely forgot about that. I think I blocked that out of my memory. Honestly, I think that's the last time I saw jail bars. So.
well, that's good. That's a good thing. But God bless America. That was just that was crazy.
Yep.
Good times.
That was crazy.
Good
night.
times.
Yeah.
Have you thought about ever going back to radio or anything, or do you ever think about that, or are you just kind of like me? And
Oh yeah, no, I still have that itch, but as you get older and you have kids and all that stuff, it what is asked of you, even the hours or whatnot. I am lucky here in Austin. There are still some independent owned radio stations, but there again, if anybody wants to get into broadcasting, like any other profession, you're going to start at the bottom. You're going to make crummy money, and you're going to have crummy hours. It's a lot easier when it's just you, and you don't have a lot of financial obligations. So I suppose I could just go do a midnight to 6 a.m. air shift and make minimum wage and have no medical benefits to satisfy my cravings. But I don't know. We've been in Austin for 8 years now, and when we relocated here, I was kind of transitioning and not knowing what direction I wanted to go professionally wise. And I did apply at a radio station, and it was kind of like a KLOS, rock and roll type of format. And so I felt, it wasn't, new alternative to where I was going to be too old. But the position that I applied for was it was out in the field, kind of like promotions type of setup. And there again, that is the basement. It's like working at the mailroom. And I was totally willing to do it, and I kind of laugh at it now when I prepare to go to that interview. I dressed all up in my collared shirt and whatnot, and I think I was overdressed, and the kid that interviewed me was a full-on millennial, and you can tell like he was almost like interviewing his father.
Yeah.
And I think if I would have showed up with a just a sleeve, collared shirt showing my tats and whatnot, and really been myself, because we did have a good conversation. I told him my past and my history and my experience, and he said, this is obviously the stepping stone, and there is room for advancement, and this is a great station to work for. It wasn't big, it wasn't ginormous. I think they'd owned about 7 or 8 stations nationwide. So it seemed like a really good fit, but I think I just over dadded myself for this guy, and he never called me back. I don't know why, but
and that's the worst, because we were told growing up,
yeah.
Being Gen Xers, like you always, I don't care if it's a job at McDonald's or wherever, you dress up, you look good, and so that's all you were doing.
Yep.
You
Yeah,
were
exactly.
like, I'm really a cool guy.
Yeah.
Go check out my Instagram. I'm a cool
Yeah,
guy.
if I would have showed up, with some some jeans with some holes in it and some Hey Dudes and just a collared shirt and sat back and chatted with him. And South by Southwest was coming out. That's why they were trying to hire people to go out. I would have
Yeah.
had free access for the whole 2 weeks, and
Yeah.
but then I shortly thereafter I got a real adult job and kind of put everything else on hold. I
Yeah.
haven't done anything DJ wise, music wise since. So I'm glad that we get to do this just to have a speaker in front of me and just talk about old times and
Yeah.
kind of it's a perfect time in my life to do something like this.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that this is almost better because, I mean, we're not making any money yet, but maybe, one day we got some sponsors coming in, and
Yeah, they haven't signed yet, but
hyping
yeah,
it up. Yeah,
exactly.
but yet the optimism yet.
Yeah.
So this is definitely more of my kind of pace, and radio was amazing, and I would never trade it in for anything. I mean, all my experiences I've had and all the people I met, it was amazing. Just from even all the way from radio school, and just a lot of good memories. And so, but I think definitely we have to generationally move into what everybody else is kind of what the thing is right now, because you think radio is kind of radio is still out there, but you definitely feel that shift, and everybody's on Spotify, or they're just listening to their Apple Music. Like, how often are you listening to the radio? I mean, I myself will have my phone and shuffle all my music, and I just shuffle everything because I've got 10,000 songs on there or something crazy, and listen to music that way. This has been great. I fully enjoyed this, and I look forward to doing very many shows for many years, and having interactions with people, and who knows, maybe some celebrities, some YouTubers, some whoever. I'm all about anybody. I wish sometimes, I'm a big Joe Rogan fan, so when I watch Joe Rogan have these great conversations with people, I sometimes think, I wish they would just invite a normal person. Pick everybody from your listeners, and they don't even have to fly us out or anything. If you have an opportunity, hey, if you're going to be in the area, or if you're willing to fly out, come out, or we'll do it via Zoom. But I would love to be in the studio with Joe Rogan and just have conversations, because he has a lot of things that I love, the things he discusses, and he's so open. And especially coming from the celebrity world and being on television and doing the Fear Factor, and he's kind of been through a whole thing, and leaving California and moving to Austin. I think it's very interesting. So I always think it'd be great if they would do let's have somebody from our listenership come and talk to us, and have conversations.
Absolutely.
All right.
Sorry,
Sorry.
Does she know that we're in a podcast?
Yeah. I've got mom responsibilities. I got to take my daughter to work. She actually got, my 17-year-old works at McDonald's, and she got Employee of the Month. Very proud of her. That's my kid. So
how do you make the cheer sound?
Oh, I'll do it. I'll put it in there.
Okay.
I'll do
All right, good. Yes, congrats.
So okay, so
happy meals for everybody. Go ahead.
Happy meals for everybody all around. So great talking to you. This was a great first show for us, and we'll be looking forward to doing it again next week, right?
Yep, absolutely. Same bat time,
Sounds
same
good.
band channel.
100%. All right, I'll talk to you later.
Peace out.